So let's jump into Steven Spielberg's new film, the trailer coming out just before Christmas, the trailer. And what's it called? Disclosure Day. Well, where does that span your mind to? It spans your mind to outer space or kind of interdimensional thinking. What will he show or reveal or bring our attention to when that film comes out next year on June the 16th, I believe it is. But the short answer really is we're talking about visitations from other realms, or do we look interdimensional in that there are other dimensions? If you go with interdimension, you could be kind of looking at a scientific view that there are other realms out there scientifically. But if you go with other realms of the spiritual realm, you're looking at a more untangible, intangible world that science can't get to grips with. I guess they'd go more with the former rather than the latter. And maybe point two, only maybe, none of us have seen the film yet, point two, kind of interdimensional kind of thinking. This would fit in better, really, when you consider the people making these films. It's very hard not to believe, easier to believe, that a lot of these would have had spiritual, let's use the word phenomenon, taking place in their lives. So they would be fully aware of some form of other realmy event, or even not so much event, but personalities and beings, whatever you wish to call them. And of course, we've moved on in this day and age because we're more in a scientific day and age, and the thinking is more broad along these lines. So we've gone beyond the little green men kind of mentality and flying saucers and this. And we've gone into UAP, unidentified area phenomenon. So phenomenon is a big word because it doesn't necessarily point to UFO flying objects. Objects is more material. Phenomenon might take in the interdimensional force kind of thinking, scientific. But dare anyone go into the spiritual to explain these things? You touch upon the spiritual, then you're going to start talking about God and the devil, this kind of thing. Angels and demons. Well, maybe they don't want to go there because that points to God, of course, and people are frightened to point to God these days. In a lot of ways, it's instant suicide in a scientific age to talk about God. So curious where they're going to go with it. And with this, of course, this is kind of one of the other distractions away from what actually did happen. In that this world has already been visited for centuries, thousands of years of visitations coming to this world from another realm, the spirit realm. And of course, it is Christmas, and everyone's seen and heard the story of Gabriel. And it's interesting to kind of recap and re-summarize Gabriel, because we're looking at visitations. And of course, people have heard the story of Jesus lying in a manger in a stable, this kind of thing, and Mary, a young virgin who became pregnant, and all this kind of stuff, and angels appearing to shepherds. A lot of this in people's minds can appear to be something like a kind of a fairy tale that we hear every year, and people have become kind of immune and numb to the whole thing, like, what's in it for me, kind of thinking, what can I get out of this? They think nothing. But when you go into just who appeared to Mary, and the reality that we have indeed been visited down through the centuries, down through the ages, by various angels, and because the one that comes up this time of year is indeed Gabriel. And Gabriel has no doubt got a long history. We've got some of his history written down, and you're going 600 BC. So in 600 BC, you had a man called Daniel, and it's interesting when you look up Daniel's age, when these visitations took place from other realms, from another realm. And he's getting on, he's 65, anything between 65 years to 80 years in that time period. You read, when you look these things up, which is easy to do these days, and, excuse my coughing, 65 to 80 years, suddenly all of these various visitations kick off, and it's one angel in particular, along with often two others, visiting Daniel. And of course, these people up the top in government more have had visions and visitations than they dare to let on. It's not really politically correct, you might say, to talk of such things. And often these visitations come with warnings. They can come with blessings. They can come with a kind of a mixed message, both blessings and even cursings for people. So often they appear to people as like taps on the shoulder. They're going the wrong way. And so you kind of get a tap on the shoulder from God, in that an angel would be sent to you, maybe in a dream, like what happened to Pilate's wife. Had a dream, no doubt. There's angels involved in these dreams, kind of and she warns her husband Pilate to have nothing to do with that just man being Jesus, because clearly he had power in his hands to, of course, save or crucify Jesus, but because he went with the latter, and therefore he didn't heed the warning. So few talk about these visitations because they often come with warnings. But it has to be emphasized too, they also come with blessings. And prophecies of good things, not always bad things. This was really the case with Gabriel. Now, it really needs to be emphasized a lot. I've just said it. A lot of people don't talk about their spiritual phenomenons and realities. Why? Because there is often sin in the mix, and you'd have to expose your sin to other people as to why the vision took place, because the angel was dealing with my sins. Usually people don't want to give up their sins, as was true with Pilate. Jesus said, "He that delivered thee unto me have the greater sin." So Pilate was with sin, but it's recorded down what happened there. So interesting to kind of review just who it was that came to Mary, and this mixed message, both good and bad, that often accompanies the angel Gabriel. And with this, bear in mind, people don't always talk about their dreams and visions and revelations and visitations. Why? Because there's often very gross sins in the mix that they're being warned of, and they'd have to not expose only the fact that they've been become some kind of a freak that's been visited by someone from another realm, but also they'd have to expose the sin that the visitor was the angel, being the messenger, was talking about. So for that reason, very few talk about their experiences. And this is often true with people up the top. Now, the visitations don't necessarily come from an angel of God. You can get a visitation from the devil's angels. This is often the case too. And they would talk less about visitations from the devil's angels, fallen angels, in fact. And this would actually destroy you politically, wouldn't it, if you start talking about devils and you're in a high office or you're making a movie or whatever you're doing. because it would expose that you're in league, and also to talk of things like the devil. People sum up visions of horned beings and tails and all this kind of stuff, pitchforks. Will exactly do you credibility. So, interesting. Let's go into all of this talk of visitations. The fact is, they have been taking place for thousands of years. Since time began on this earth, there was always angels and visitations. They haven't stopped since this world was created. And they still continue to this day. And with Christmas being in the mix, the Spielberg film being released, pointing to next summer, June the 16th, we're all going to no doubt watch that film and see what's coming down, as they say. But coming down might imply coming from above. Better said, coming up from below, truth be known, because usually